So let's continue our discussion on the 18th Amendment and why the government has chosen to raise the question now. Last time we had discussed the reduction of poverty in Pakistan from 2001, when Pakistan had 60% abject poverty, and how by 2010 that figure had come down to 34%, and then subsequently by 2018, when the actual the transfer of power happened, the 10-year democratic transition culminated, the poverty had reduced down to 24.8%. In 2019, December 2019, Dr. Hafiz Pasha, who's one of Pakistan's most eminent economists, had released a study in which he had indicated that poverty had risen back to 30%, meaning that from the time of the transfer of power to December 2019, a space of little more than a year, the poverty had actually started to show, and it was rising quite rapidly, and there were reasons for Pakistan going into a structural adjustment, the massive rupee devaluation, the high inflation. But net the result was that millions and millions of Pakistanis were falling back below the poverty line, something that they had climbed out of recently. And in that same paper, he had gone on to forecast that by June of 2020, the incidence of poverty would have risen to 40%. So in other words, we were reversing, we were all set to reverse all the gains that had been made in recent years. And mind you, this was the situation before COVID, when we can imagine with the COVID now as an added variable in the equation. My guess is that if it was 40% before, it would probably be 50% around now, and increasing. Now this, we need to also look at one more perspective, and that we had touched upon the Benazir Income Support Program. We have to look at 2010. Two very major events happened in Pakistan at that time. One was the implementation of a support program, a poverty net, which was the BISP, and the second was the passage of the 18th Amendment and the NFC award. Now, BISP is not really understood by most people who are very keen to comment on it, but it provides a basic framework and a blueprint to build a welfare state. That's the essential philosophy behind the program. It has a basic component, which is the basic income support, and then it has three sub-programs underneath: the Wasila-e-Sehat for health, the Wasila-e-Taaleem for education, and the Wasila-e-Haq for microfinance. And the point being that you enroll people enroll underprivileged people into the basic program, and then from there, using data mining and other empirical techniques, you offer them added support through building basic health of the family, and improving education levels, school enrollment, and offer them an exit from the program through microfinance. But it doesn't just stop there, because there is also a fourth component, which is a non-cash component, and that is the vocational training component. Now, of course, when this government came in, it sought to change the name of the program, but that doesn't change its character, its basic philosophy. Now, interestingly, still in 2010, the combination of these two factors, the BISP and the passage of the 18th Amendment, was that it effectively transferred 60% of the nation's tax resources to the provinces. Means that the divisible pool was 60% money was transferred to the provinces and 40% was retained by the center, and social responsibility remaining the responsibility of the center. At the time, or rather at the time, it might have been a very small fraction of the overall expense of the federation, but today the BISP, the SARS program, accounts for it is the third largest item in the federal budget after debt servicing, defense, and the social program. So this is now where we are getting to the crux. We're beginning to understand the unease of the federal government at this point to carry this burden of responsibility, or in other words, the inability to rebalance the three major items, which are again debt, defense spending, and social programs. So it's quite apparent now that by the time this COVID crisis is over, it would have changed the character of many states towards welfare states. I have been saying this for a while, and we have been, on the other hand, throughout our history, we have been a security state, and this was actually one attempt to move out of that paradigm, move out of the security state mindset and towards a welfare state mindset, and that is why it has so many critics, both the 18th Amendment and the BISP. Until now, when COVID came, we're beginning to actually see that how useful, because not many countries have programs of this nature. And in 2010, when it was launched, it was a pioneering effort in the whole of the developing world, and was widely acclaimed by donor agencies who came forth and were happy to pour funds into the program. So because they were quite happy with the transparency and to see that the benefit was reaching the poor. So it has come a long way since that time, and it remains the basic blueprint we have available today, the main building block to begin building a welfare state for our citizens. Now, of course, this is going to make the certain quarters very nervous, because it means that there's going to be some amount of restructuring of the and it's only fair to assume, for example, when this COVID outbreak came, the lockdown was imposed first in Sindh. The Sindh government made an immediate plea to the federal government to share NADRA data and to be provided with the data, so that one would like to push a button and transfer money directly into accounts, then have to go door to door distributing, which is a ration and food items, which is very clumsy, it is very cumbersome, and it is prone to corruption, leakages, accusations, acrimony of all sorts. A nice clean system where you can push a button and identify your your potential effectees and have them receive the cash quietly and through and transparently. Something it can be audited. You can look at the numbers. You can go back. Now, is it fair to assume that the provinces should carry some of the burden of social welfare? Of course, it's a fair assumption, but is this the way if that is the objective that the PTI wishes to achieve, then wouldn't it have been the appropriate at the time when the Sindh government had made an appeal for data to have widened that conversation, to have first welcomed the conversation, then to have widened the conversation, then to have brought the other provinces on board, and to basically start discussing that like a mature group of adults. Instead, the PTI's brusque and crude style is very off-putting for anybody who's not associated with their party, who does not see eye to eye with their worldview and does not buy into their mantra. And of course, the first reaction is, why should I even talk to you? I mean, do you have the basic etiquette and the courtesy to come and discuss? And if you want to talk business, you don't fire off by asking questions and calling into question the 18th Amendment. You know, the way would have been to approach the other side, to have a more conciliatory attitude. Just go back. I think PTI needs to go back and study how the 18th Amendment was crafted. It was not done in a brusque manner. It was done in a consultative manner as one nation. There are people with all kinds of points of view in this country, but the architects of the 18th Amendment were able to consult, take on board everybody's suggestions, bring this whole nation onto a common onto a common consensus, and that is how the work of governance is carried out. So while I don't see anything fundamentally wrong with provincial contributions being made to social sector programs, I see everything wrong in the management style and the lack of leadership that has been displayed by the PTI in this. And I hope that as this episode unfolds, we'll see more maturity and better sense prevail in the quarters. Thank you for joining, and I hope this is going to leave you with some food for thought.